Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to be starting something a little bit different. It's more of a how-to. I'm going to be teaching you guys how to draw the human body in steps and how to follow it, how to do it with proportions and guidelines, so that when you decide to draw the human figure in the future, you have a set guideline on how to do so and everything looks realistic. If this sounds interesting, then let's hop into it. Before we start, I would just like to say, if you enjoy the content that I create, then please hit the subscribe button, like the video and leave a comment so I know what everyone thinks. And if you have any requests for videos, then shoot those through. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so before we get into the actual tutorial, I just want to show you the end result. This is what it's supposed to look like at the end. As you can see, there are 8 proportions. I will get into that later. But if this looks like what you wanted, then stay tuned. But if this isn't what you want, then I'm sorry, but just stay tuned. You might pick up 1 or 2 tricks along the way. With that said and done, let's get into it. Okay, before we start, I just want to run through what tools you will be needing. First off, you're going to need some paper, obviously. What I tend to do is I like to use my sketch journal. If you can see this is a A5 diary. I like to use the smaller sheets when I'm practicing or trying to learn something new, so I don't waste too much paper. So, or if this isn't what you usually use, or you're not comfortable with A5, you can always take an A4 sheet of paper and turn it landscape, and it should do just fine. Okay, the next thing is a ruler. You can use any ruler you want, and you'll see why in a minute. The next thing we're going to be using is a standard clutch pencil. We're going to be working with tiny details, so I suggest a clutch pencil over an ordinary pencil. The pencil I'm using is as you can see, is a 0.3, if my camera could focus. Just hang on. It's not going to focus, but this is a 0.3mm clutch pencil. You'll need an eraser, and just get any random fine line or fine point pen. I'm using the Unipin Fine Line 0.3 fine point pen, but any should be fine, even an ordinary pen. Alright, let's get started. Okay, so step number 1 is you're gonna want to create a central line. This will be the center of our figure. What I tend to do, any actual dimension could work for you, because you're going to use this to divide this line into 8 equal pieces. So what I'm going to do is just going to use my actual ruler. So I'm working in millimeters, so I'm going to be using 150 millimeters, and let me just measure this out. And there you go, that's 150. Let me just make a mark at the top and the bottom. Okay, and like I said, we're going to take this now and divide this into 8 even parts. Okay, there we go, we've got 8 equal parts, and that's going to work for the height of our figure. Next step is to identify the width of our figure, and that's very simple. So just pay careful attention, because if you mess this up, everything is going to be ruined. So the width is equivalent to 2 1/3 of these boxes. 2 1/3. Okay, so let me just show you what I mean. So for me, one box, obviously you measured your line out according to whatever dimensions you used, but for me, one box is about 18.75 millimeters. So I'm going to go roughly gonna go 18.75, and then again 18.75, and then 1/3. If I measure this out, 18.75. Obviously, you don't, for this bit, you don't have to be that precise. Okay, and now you do the same thing to the top. Okay, and then all you do is you connect the ends of this box. Okay, there you go. This is what yours should look like at the moment, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw lines across each of these divisions so we can see what we're working with, and then I'm going to label them according to the human body. Okay, there's the divisions. Let me just label them now. Let's go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 8 divisions. Okay. Now, before I carry on, this whole process is going to be split up into 3 main areas. So I'm going to name them quickly. So from 0 to 1, so basically this area, we're going to be dealing with the head. Then from 1 to 4, we have the torso and arms. And then from 4 all the way down to 8, you have your legs. Okay. Now I'm just going to label each individual line, so this makes it a bit easy to understand. So for 0, you have the top of the head. Then for number 1, you have the chin line. Then number 2, we have the nipple line. Nipple line. I apologize if you can't read my handwriting, it's pretty terrible, I know. I'm a cursive writer, not very good at print, but we'll make do with what we have. And then number 3, we have the navel line. Number 4, I'm gonna call it the crotch line. Number 5 is the mid thighs. We're now going into the legs. Mid thigh. Then for number 6, we're at the bottom of knees, and the kneecaps are going to be there. Then number 7, we have mid shin, and then finally number 8, we have the bottom of the feet. So let me just break this down to you again. From 0 to 1, you have the head. From 1 to 4, you have the torso and arms. From 4 to 8, you have legs. 0 is the top of the head, 1 is the chin line, 2 is your nipple line, 3 is your navel line, 4 is your crotch line, 5 is your mid thighs, 6 is the bottom of knees, 7 is your mid shins, and 8 is the bottom of your feet. Okay, now we can actually get into the actual figure. So the first thing we're going to work with is the head. So that's in this box over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this box in roughly half. You don't have to be too accurate about this. Now is the time when we can freehand and eyeball things as we want, because we're still learning. And I'm just going to create a circle for the cranium. You probably won't be able to see it very clearly on camera, but it's just a construction line for me. You don't have to be too accurate about it, it's just a rough form. Okay, and then we're just going to tape this out. Well, first let me just create the chin. Let's create marks for the chin, and then we're just going to taper this out into your chin. Like I said, we're still learning this, so don't be too harsh on yourself. You can always practice this over and over, and eventually it will just become muscle memory to you, and everything will fit in place much better. Okay, so that's the top of the head. I'm just going to highlight it in pen just so it's easier for everyone to see. So that's the top of the head, and then we're going to work in division 1 to 2. Okay, so I'm gonna call this the rule of thirds. So what I'm gonna do, and it's just going to follow through most of these boxes, is I'm gonna divide these boxes into thirds, and you can use your eye to just eyeball it. You don't have to be too accurate. So that's roughly thirds, and then what you're gonna do is we're gonna create our shoulder line, and the shoulder line is on the first third, this one over here. So I'm just going to create a minimal arc, and we're just going to create a line going across, another line going across like this. Before I carry on, I'm just going to explain that I'm going to work with the head, then I'm going to do the torso, and I'm going to go through the legs, and then I'm going to come back and do the arms, just so it's easier for you to understand. Next step is we're just going to create the rib cage. So in each box you're just going to measure roughly half, just roughly half. Okay, looks about right. And then you're just going to connect that to the shoulder line. Okay, that's about the top of our rib cage. And then let's move into box 2 and 3, and in there we're going to be using the rule of thirds again. And then let me just indicate them again. Now what we're going to do is we're going to taper out the rib cage to the second quadrant. This is quadrant 1, quadrant 2, and then quadrant 3. So this one here, that's where we're going to tape out our ribcage to. Don't make it too drastic. We want it to look realistic, not crazy. Right, that looks about fine. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to bring this down to the navel line. Let's create another box, and that should end off that quadrant. Quadrant 3 to 4 we're going to create the taper effect for our hips, and what I tend to do is I make the end of the hips about the same width of the rib cage. So what I'm going to do is create a gentle construction line and measure that down to there. Another construction line, measure down there. Alright, and then we're going to use the rule of thirds once again. One there, one there, and I'm just going to draw up until that third, and then over here at the corners you can create a slight arc if you want to, or you can keep it angular, but we're just going to taper it out to that and that. Okay, that looks fine. It does look a little weird on this side, but like I said, practice makes perfect. It's the theory that matters, and then just repetition. Okay, And then we're going to work in quadrant 4 and 5, which is your thighs. And then quadrant 5 and 6 is where I'm going to start. Actually 4 and 5 is going to merge into 6. Okay, so I'm going to use the rule of thirds once more. Yes, okay. And then your thighs are going to end at the second third, which is this one here, and then the kneecaps will be below them. So what I'm going to do is just going to create a light construction line going across, because we're going to draw in the thighs from there. So let me just make this darker to signal the end of that and where the thighs begin. And what you're going to do is create a thigh, and then from the first third here we're going to slightly taper out the thighs, and then from the top here just very minimally taper the thigh. So you should be left with something like this, and then just repeat it on the other side. Obviously, if you make any mistakes with this, I'm still gonna go over this in pen, so I can still create some corrections to it afterwards, and it will look a bit better that way. Okay, so now we have our thighs that are drawn in. Next we need the kneecaps. So what I'm gonna do is just gonna draw 2 circles from the second third to the bottom to number 6. Those are our kneecaps. And then from quadrant 6 to 7 is just going to be the starting with the shins, and it's going to follow the same effect from 4 to 6. So we're going to have the shins going across down, and it's going to be roughly, I think, the first third here in quadrant 7 to 8, where we're going to stop or end the shin and start the ankle. Okay, so let me just mark this out again, rule of thirds. That's roughly it. And then she's just going to end it on the second third part and not the first third. I'm just going to draw a mini construction line just to make it a little easier for me. And we're going to start the shin, and this time you don't need to taper it all that much. It can be straighter, and you're just going to basically create a rectangle. I'm rounding the edges just because that's the way I like it, but if you want to create rectangular blocks, then that's fine for you as well. But remember, I'm going for the mannequin look, not an actual human figure. Well, a realistic human figure. This is just to help with proportions. Okay, that looks roughly right. Now we're going to do the ankles and the bottom of the feet, and how the ankle connects to the feet. So what you're going to do is create a circle that goes halfway into the bottom of the shin, and the other half of the circle is going to come out. You'll see what I mean when I draw it now. So we're just going to create a circle that looks roughly like that. So it goes halfway in and it's halfway out. And you're going to do the same thing to the other side. It's going to look roughly like that. And now the feet is pretty simple. This is according to however you want it. I'm just going to create some lines over there like that. And then all you do is taper the feet out. And you can use your own discretion here. But obviously don't make it too unrealistic. And then just draw in the toes, or what represents the toes. That looks about right. Okay, before I move on to the arms, I'm just going to highlight everything with the fine liner. I see that I've forgotten to draw in the neck, so it's a good thing I'm going over this again. So what I'm going to do is just gently create a little curve, and there's the neck. Now I'm going to draw in right. It should look something like this up to this point, and now we're just going to work on the arms, and then we should be done with this. So what you're going to do here is, as you can see, I didn't highlight the entire shoulder line because we're going to be placing the top joint for our shoulders that connect to our arm, the circles. So I'm just going to do about half of box 1 and 2. I'm just going to create a circle there, circle there, and then from this rule of thirds that we used in quadrant 2 and 3, we're going to use the second third here and just draw it all the way across. That's going to be where the bicep is. Yeah, it's going to end, and then from there downwards it's going to be our elbow. Just going to draw it out. Same concept applies for like we did with the thighs and the shins, but obviously this is a little bit smaller because it's just the top of the arms with the bicep. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We should have that. Now let's just draw in the elbows. Okay, I'm going to draw in the forearms, and you're just going to end it rough. You can eyeball this. It's going to be just over the crotch line. You're just going to end the forearm just over it. You can use your own discretion, but I'm going to end it roughly there. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. The reason, if you remember from the start, remember how I measured the width was 2 boxes and a third. If you messed those dimensions up, the arms would not fit within these boxes, or it would just shy slightly outwards, and you would have just ruined the dimensions slightly. But it's still workable, but to be on the safe side, just keep those dimensions in mind when you start, and just make sure everything is in place. Okay, wrist flexors, and that's just going to go from top of 4. We're just going to create another oval like shape for the wrist, like that, and then from here it's going to be the hands. In the hands is usually somewhere around your mid thighs. You can test this out. Just stand up and put your arms down. It should be somewhere around your mid thighs, or depending on your height, closer to your knees, but for me it's mid thigh. And let's just draw that in. So it's going to be something like this. So long as you're within this box and you don't go over it, then you should be fine. And we're just going to do the same thing on the other side. And there you go. I'm just going to highlight everything in pen just to make it look a bit better so you can see better. And there you go. The human figure, or in my case a mannequin, and all the dimensions are placed out. Everything should be in proportion if you follow this, and you can develop sketch from this as your guideline. But yeah. Okay, and that was that. I hope this helps you out with your projects and your sketches and your designs. This was part 1. Part 2 will be coming out soon, where I teach you how to draw the head in a similar manner with steps. And yeah, if you found all of this entertaining, then once again I must ask you to please just subscribe, leave a like, and just shoot a comment through, because I genuinely want to hear what everyone thinks. But that's all from me today. See you next time.
Rewind, I'm not unbreakable, but I don't wanna hear these Chinese whispers.